Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's The Dragon, another one of those interesting bootlegs that I've come across that I thought was pretty funny to go ahead and play. This from some company that was called Ramar, or Rinko, one of the two. There's a couple of different copyright things on it. The game seemingly is based on the Dragon Bruce Lee story, but instead of just having Bruce Lee as the main character, instead it actually uses characters from Mortal Kombat. For example, we first face off against Scorpion, known as Suzuki, from Japan here, with the Shadowless Cross Dart as his special move. Basically, each of the fighters we gotta face off against have a special move, and his isn't quite the whole sending out the spear and then pulling you towards him. The game is very simplistic as far as strategy goes. We're pretty much gonna use the sweep kick throughout the entire game, but what's interesting is not only does it have the one-on-one fighting, it also has the platforming action segments for a couple levels, and then you get to your next one-on-one fight. When your health bar runs out, it counts as you losing a life. There's no rounds or anything during these segments, and as you can see, they actually didn't do a horrible job as far as taking those sprite work and the characters from Mortal Kombat and putting them here in this title. Though I know there are a lot of other bootleg Mortal Kombat games out there, I don't know which ones came first by any means. After defeating Scorpion, we move on to the first regular level of the game, and our main strategy, just like with the Scorpion fight, will be using the sweep kick, as we're able to hit enemies a lot of times without them being able to land hits on us. In fact, ducking most of the time will allow us to completely negate them being able to do anything to us. You actually do have to platform and jump, watching out for spike pits as well as buzzsaws later on, which is pretty interesting. The platforming is stiff to say the absolute least, but it kind of does work. I didn't run into too much hit detection when it came to the platforming, and overall it's just such an odd experience, this game. It does have a pretty terrible soundtrack, as I'm sure you're already hearing, and it doesn't get any better throughout the course of it. Sometimes you'll have these segments here where you'll have to face off against a bunch of these knife-running guys, but we're pretty much going to stay around the center of the screen and easily just turn left or right, whatever way we need to turn in order to hit them. Enemies come out of both sides, so you're never quite sure. Also, throughout, there's a lot of crates you can open up. The crates contain either health, a weapon, a sub-weapon basically, like a nunchuck that you're able to pick up, or they will also, most of the time, contain bombs, which will destroy your health meter. I mean, they're as bad as the bombs from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. These bombs will destroy your health, so I don't open up a lot of crates for that reason, because sometimes it's really hard to even dodge the bomb once it actually is shown off. It has a countdown on it, but if you get anywhere within its vicinity, it automatically explodes, making it really a pain in the butt to deal with. The beat-em-up style levels are pretty much just like this throughout the whole game, where you have to do a little bit of platforming and then face off against a series of enemies, and then you'll be able to continue on the level, eventually making it to the end of the stage and moving on to the next one. There's two styles of these action levels in a row, then you face off with the next Mortal Kombat character. Not all the Mortal Kombat characters are included, but we do have Scorpion, we do have Raiden, Sonya, Johnny Cage, and Kano. You may have also noticed at the beginning of the game, there was a couple of modes, not just the main mode. There's the battle mode and then an options menu, which wasn't a whole lot in the options menu other than changing the amount of lives you end up having. But as far as the battle mode goes, if you want to just do the one-on-one fighting, you can do that. You can't select your character. You're still going to be playing as the same Bruce Lee / Liu Kang character, but it gives you the option also to kind of practice, which I did a little bit at first. Because honestly, the whole beat-em-up sections are pretty easy, with the exception of one enemy is annoying that we get introduced to a little bit ways in. But the one-on-one fighting parts are probably the hardest, but a little bit of strategy of mostly learning to master the jumping and then the sweep kick will pretty much allow you to easily net victory. This is nothing overall special by any means, but just the fact that they used the Mortal Kombat sprites and the was what ended up standing out to me as being pretty humorous, and why I wanted to do a playthrough of the game for the channel. The game also introduces pretty much a new enemy every one of the action stages. You'll get one different type to deal with, which is kind of cool. At least they do keep a bit of variety, though Like I said, other than one enemy that we'll be dealing with, the rest are really easy. These guys in particular, they just run back and forth, and as long as you're ducking, their punches cannot make contact. Now, hit detection in general is pretty crappy, as is to be expected with pretty much every bootleg game I have ever played, but since your sweep kick hits such a big distance away from your body, it works pretty well, actually, and don't have too many issues. Now that we've completed the second level, though, it's on to Ram, aka King Fighter, who has the bloody chop. Basically, it's Johnny Cage that we're dealing with here. Once again, we're going to be using that sweep kick. A lot of the strategy is doing the jump kick towards him and then immediately ducking in order to go into the sweep. This allows us to kind of hit multiple hits, and a lot of times you can get him up against the left or right walls. He'll jump straight up into the air, and if you time it right when he lands, you can immediately get him into another sweep kick. This will either cause him to jump right back up into the air or try to jump and get away from you. And then you just keep repeating that strategy, and he should go down. The later enemies or bosses get a little bit tougher when it comes to that whole thing. They get a little bit more moves that can kind of combo you a bit, but still pretty much going to be our strategy throughout the course of it. Next, we move on to the next stage here, which is more of the same as far as the beat 'em up style of action is concerned. But thrown our way in this level is a new enemy, the one that I mentioned that can give you problem, and that's the little tiny guys. And the reason why these guys are annoying is they can jump a lot more, they like to jump a lot more. They cannot be hit with the jump kick, or at least if they are able to get hit with the jump kick, it's very rare that I'm seemingly able to ever land it. But they can easily kind of move away and hit you quicker sometimes than you can get the sweep kick off. Sometimes they actually can even combo you with multiple hits in a row, which can be a bit annoying. 2 hits, though, with the sweep kick will take them out, so that's usually my strategy, is to hit them and then immediately try to close in and attack again. But you only want to take a step or 2 forward towards them. If you get too close, that's when they're able to get their claw attack out, and since they're so low to the ground, they're going to hit you more times than not. There overall is some nice little colorful scenery and backgrounds in some of the areas. Of course, some of them don't really end up making a whole lot of sense as far as like continuity or a theme or anything, and I don't think they were going for that kind of thing. And I'm sure a lot of the other sprites and characters are taken from other games as well, since we did have the Mortal Kombat characters used. So if you do know what a lot of the other enemies or any of the other backgrounds or anything come from, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to know where a lot of this stuff ended up coming from. If you are wondering, the guys that kind of have like the blue or the brown like longer outfit on that I just defeated before these guys showed up, they do have a weapon. They can end up like trying to swipe at you if they stay on stage for too long, so you want to make sure you're getting close. They kind of really sneak along the stage more so than anything else. Then there's the typical guys that end up just kind of walking slowly towards you and try to punch you, like the one guy on the left here. Then you have the Little Macs, basically. That you cannot tell me, especially in more modern incarnations of Little Mac with like Super Smash Brothers, that the boxing guy with the green outfit, the green version of him, as we'll see, a green, a red, and a blue version, like the blue version here, definitely looks like Little Mac, especially the green one. I mean, that is almost perfect. You could pretty much take that sprite and put it into like another game and have like a Little Mac beat 'em up side scroller using that particular piece of work. Those boxing guys do have a decent amount of defense, though. They actually take 3 sweeps to take out, so they're one of the few enemies that have a good amount and can actually survive multiple sweeps, but pretty easy as long as you're ducking nearby with them. Once again, they'll pretty much easily go down from the sweep kick, but they of course can unleash a pretty devastating little punch thing if you allow them to do so. A lot of times I'll do the jump kick towards them to hit them once and then immediately duck down to go into the sweep combo. That way I can kind of hit them with a jump kick and get one hit off and then immediately into the sweep, so it speeds things up a tiny bit. As we continue on through this level, it's the kind of getting used to at this point to the whole punching guys, little Mac-looking guys, as we're able to kind of push them where we need to against the walls, either left or right, and kind of get into that sweep motion. Here we have to deal with more of these running guys, and the small guys, like I said, they're always the worst. They do that diving jump attack with their claw out, which always just ends up causing issues for me when I end up having to deal with it. You can see, they're the only ones that usually will do any damage to me throughout the course of the entire run. There, I was actually able to hit a rare drop kick on one of the small guys, but even then, like I said, it's very hard to do so. But next up is Kano, who I love the description of Kano in this game. We have his name is Tat, and you have him from China, but his skill of fighting is icy killing pugilism, skill of sky gliding. I don't know exactly what that means, but that's basically how they're describing both his blast and his, I guess, rolling cannonball type move. But he's a little bit tougher than any of the other ones that we've dealt with so far. A bit harder to kind of get against the left and right walls. As you can see, he can do a sweep kick that can be pretty devastating to us because it hits us multiple times. Even though he's only doing one sweep kick, it hits us multiple times. So if you're able to kind of see that coming, you can kind of jump out of the way if possible. But it takes some really quick precision, and I end up making a few mistakes here, but thankfully a little bit of perseverance, and I'm able to take out Kano and move on to the next level. I also love, like, the catchphrases at the end, like, I'm the strongest man in the world there, and, of course, the text glitches a little bit, because it's different colors, and then we got our description for the next level, but we're not at the end yet, even though it's, like, the big boss is what this next, like, chapter is considered. We still have 2 more Mortal Kombat villains, characters, whatever, to deal with in this. We'll be facing off against Sonya next, and then finally Raiden being the final boss of the game, or the equivalent of Raiden, basically, I guess. Though he interestingly does have both the lightning and his flying move as well. Right here is the hardest jump in the entire game. Of course, obviously making it look pretty easy, but you have to get to the very edge. And I mean the very, very edge of the platform before you jump, because you end up hitting your head, and if you do it too early, you'll end up hitting your head and end up falling right down to the buzzsaws, and it's an instant death if you end up messing up that jump. So you have to be very, very careful while attempting that. As you already, of course, have noticed, there is another new enemy introduced in this stage, is the big old fat guys. The fat guys, the sumo guys, when they get close enough, they will do like a punching combo that does a lot of damage. It can be pretty devastating to your health. But if you do the sweep kick from a good enough distance, you can easily back them off, and they like to glitch a lot when they make it to the left and right sides of the screen, allowing us to easily kind of bunch them up with other enemies, or even multiple of the big guys bunched up together as we're trying to take them out. Other than that one jump we had to deal with in this level, it's a pretty straightforward, easy one to deal with. Only that one jump is really kind of a pain. Here we have to go through a little bit of a small corridor. There are a couple of boxes there if you do want to end up picking them up. But like I said, most of the time they're just going to end up being bombs, so I just ignore them when at all possible. Only if I'm like getting a little bit low on health do I risk it and open them up to try to get the... well, I think it's supposed to be pork buns. I'm not sure exactly. Either way, the food item that it ends up being that we pick up to give us our health back. Here we take on our next segment, guys. This is the last group of enemies we have to deal with in this stage before moving to the next one. Plenty of the annoying little jumping guys, so try to keep them at bay as possible. Also, if I'm dealing with one of those guys and somebody else at the same time, I like to try to get them both on the same side of the screen. It'll be worth it to me to jump over one of them so that they're both either on the left or both on the right. Just a little bit easier to deal with them in that way. Next up, we start off with some pretty tricky jumping as well, as we have to make it. You have to kind of do a really special jump here, where you're on like the edge of the one platform, and then jump and time it so that you land safely on the platform below. Another really hard jump, probably the other hardest jump in the game. And that's pretty much it, though, as far as tricky platforming goes in this title. And that's really the only times I really ended up losing a life a lot in any of the practice runs, just because I ended up jumping and missing the platform, either there or the one in the prior level, and end up hitting those buzzsaws, because that's an instant death. Just like with the previous level, there isn't really anything special about this stage. Once we get past that initial jump, so you think maybe this level's going to be difficult as far as the platforming and all that's concerned, nope, it pretty much just becomes a pretty easy set of enemy battles that we're going to have to deal with. Plenty of small little guys to bug us and annoy us, but even with those guys, it's still pretty easy to handle everything. Though interesting architecture that's going on in the background, that's for sure. Here we have another one of those areas where we have to deal with a lot of the running knife guys. The hit detection on them can also be annoying, and it seems to get worse as the game goes, as far as like them being able to actually get a hit in on me. But still, if you time the sweep just right, which you want to do kind of a little bit before you would think you would have to do it, because like I said, the sweep kick hits a pretty good distance far out from you, so you kind of want them to run into your foot instead of doing it when they're already within reach, if that makes any sense. That way you're able to hit them before that knife is somehow able to make contact with you. With the last set of enemies taken care of, we move on to the next Mortal Kombat fighting boss thing, whatever these are. Here we have Alice Yang, aka Sonya Blade, known as the Pussycat, from France, and she has the Wizardry Chi skill of Wave, is her skill of fighting. Now, their skill of fighting moves are supposed to be also pulled off with the A and B buttons together so that we can do them ourselves, but I had no luck in pulling them off, so I would try to do A and B together. It didn't seem to really do anything. I'm sure there's probably a way to pull off some kind of special move, but honestly, for me, the special move that does more so things than anything is that sweep kick. She does have like that ring-like wave move she can do against you. If you time it, you can actually jump over it, and she's harder than the Kano fight. Her standing, normal, kind of high kick is very deadly. If it hits you, it does a lot of damage, and she can combo it a lot, so you kind of want to be careful of that. But once she is done, we're moving on to the final set of levels as we get closer to the end of the game. I also love that it says here, like, this time you win, but next time you will not. I assume that's supposed to be the Sonya character saying that to us instead of us saying it to her, because it just wouldn't make any sense as we ended up winning the fight. So either way, once that battle is done, we're moving on to the next level, which is a tropical themed stage with some nice like palm trees and the like in the air. We're also introduced to another new enemy during the course of this level, which is pretty much like an advanced version of the boxing like guy that we've already been dealing with. It's almost identical as far as the pattern of movement and the attack style of it, but at least we do have another new enemy. Here we go with these guys. These guys move really easily back and forth, take 3 sweeps of the leg to take them out like the boxing guys, and once again, we're just going to be doing that sweep, knocking them away, and then getting close in order to keep doing the sweep until they're done. I'm sure also there's a lot of other beat-em-up style of bootlegs like this. I wonder if there's any other ones done in a similar style, like maybe using Mortal Kombat characters again, or maybe other characters and putting them into a weird bootleggy beat-em-up. If you know of any others of interest, at least, you know, ones that you think would be at least somewhat entertaining, let me know down in the comments, like the names of them, or maybe even where I can end up locating them, because that's sometimes hard with the bootleg games. Is I have a lot of them now. I have a big, large collection of these bootlegs I've found, but even then, it's sometimes difficult to track certain ones down. You see like a video or an article about one of them that seems really funny or interesting, and then you have to kind of track down that particular version of it. One game that's kind of a bootleg, weird example that I've been looking for years, but as far as I know, has never been actual leaked as far as a ROM dump is concerned, is Miss Peach World, which is a version of Sunday Funday / Menace Beach, which I've actually speedrun Menace Beach, and as far as I know, I still have the record for it, because no one in their right mind should speedrun that game. But at the same time, if someone ever comes across a ROM of that, ever ends up being released as a ROM, I would love to get my hands on it. Or an actual real version. You know, I know they exist out there. If someone gave me one of those, I greatly would love to mess with it at one point. After this last couple of enemies, that's the end of this part, and we move on to the final, like, action level of the game. This level, even though it is the last one, is pretty standard fare for what we've seen from this game thus far. Plenty of big fat guys. We have those boxing, like, brawler guys that we were introduced to in the previous level. And with the fat guys on screen, it likes to glitch out a lot. You can see a lot of sprite flicker with just so many enemies on screen. The game isn't quite able to handle what exactly is going on. Here we have one more of those knife sections where we have to wait for these guys to kind of run at us with the knife out in front. Like I said, the timing, you want to kind of put your foot out there, like maybe just a sprite or two before they end up kind of reaching you. If you time it just right, you'll be able to hit them. If they do run into you, they will run them past you, and when they come back, then you'll have your opportunity to attack them again. And with this being the final level, this is one of the few that actually doesn't end up introducing us to any other new enemies for us to fight. It's just the ones that we've been dealing with like the whole game. It's kind of like the best of them as far as this level is concerned, throwing them all kind of at us. The level doesn't have a lot of platforming. Here you can take out some more crates if you want to risk it and try to get some extra health if you do need it at this point. Once we make it over to here where this green roof building is, this is the final showdown of enemies. Starts off with a couple of those like brawler type guys. It goes right into little Mac-looking guys. There's a lot of enemies, of course, trying to take us out right here at the very end, but still pretty standard fare. Actually pretty easy considering they don't really throw a lot of little guys at you. That would be a lot harder to deal with. It was like 3 of the little guys on screen at once instead of the big brawler guys. I'm sure they do a lot of damage if they're actually able to hit you, but since we pretty much negate everything with the sweep, it actually ends up being pretty easy for the final little battle. And then we move on to the final boss showdown of the game. We have Raiden here, or Fatek, or Fat-Ek. He's from apparently the Middle East, and he has the Fire Torchoid wizardry for his move. It's pretty much his lightning throw, and he can fly across the screen at you. Of course, strategy, like always, is the jumping and the sweep kick, especially if we can get him into the corner. If he's going for those high punches, thankfully we can easily duck under them and go right into a sweep kick. And if you time it right, of course, against the left and right wall, you can kind of combo him right as soon as he lands and do a little bit of damage. It does take a couple of hits in order to kind of bring the health bar down. You can see it doesn't do a whole lot of damage to him, and he is pretty speedy when it comes to moving around the screen. But once we've dealt with like every one of the other fights in the game, this one really isn't too much different than the other battles. When you do beat him, though, you do get the ending to the game, or really kind of lack thereof, here in this great bootleg known as The Dragon. And there you have it. It's best for you to stop bothering me is the last words we see on the screen before it goes back to the title screen and you can start the game all over again. Like I said, this is a really funny bootleg. Nothing too special or anything about it, but just the mix of like the Bruce Lee, the Dragon type game mixed with Mortal Kombat made me laugh enough that I wanted to go ahead and do a playthrough of it. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.